So if you watched our first in this series, part 1, we talked about cleaning the AK-47. AK-47 is a gun cleaner operator's dream come true when it comes to how clean you have to keep it, because it runs dirty and it's fine. AR-15 and its variants, or actually it's a variant of M4, M16 style rifle, is a little different. It wants a little bit of love to make sure that it runs cleanly, and so we're going to go through the procedure for what we could do in the field to make this gun run a little bit better, as well as if we've got it to the bench now where we're going to do a proper cleaning to it. We're going to take a look at that as well. As with all weapons, first thing you want to do is verify that there is no round, no magazine in the magazine well. That's right there, because we're going to double check, make sure that there are no rounds in the weapon itself. And so we hit the charging handle several times. We actually make a visual inspection down into the chamber, make sure there's no rounds down in there, and then we can lock the bolt carrier group back. Oops, let's get it up here so we can see. Lock the bolt carrier group back. That way we've got an open chamber that we can see right through here. So let's say, for example, that you're running this gun and it gets hung up for some reason. There's a round hung in the chamber. Get that round out. You again can take your brush, clean out the chamber itself. And again, I'm just using this pistol brush right in that area. And that's a real simple device to get in there. Now the other thing that we're going to do is, again, we're going to turn this weapon up so that we can run a snake through it, and I'll back the camera up a little bit so you can see that. So again, turn the weapon up, allow the snake to fall down through. And there's a lot of internet trolls and debate, good and bad, on whether you can run a snake or a cleaning rod, which direction. I'm no gun expert. However, what I have found is that I have heard from good people that say it can come out either side. Now, there's probably more that say you should always run a snake or a cleaning rod down the same direction that a bullet's going. And so, because there's probably more of them than the other, that's the route that I take. I always take cleaning rod or a cleaning snake down the direction that the bullet leaves the rifle. Now again, we're taking a look at this from the perspective of we're in the field. If we had a snake or a cleaning rod, or we just had a brush or something. So if I let the carrier group down, then you'll notice right here that there's 2 ports, and that's those gas ports. And so we can add some oil to the bolt itself right here, and we can smooth it out with our finger. If we want to, we can turn this upside down and spray some in this direction as a method of cleaning it. And again, what we're going to do is just charge it, make sure that oil is in there, and we'll probably be ready to get back in the fight. So with that said, let's say we want to give it a bit of a more proper cleaning. We'll probably want to break this down a bit more. And again, most military weapons are beautiful in that they're really easy to break down so you can clean them in the field under stress. And so I'm going to bring the camera up again and show you how to do this on this AR-15. So again, the beauty of this weapon is that there's a pin here and there's a pin here that once they're taking out, you basically have an upper and a lower that you can then work on. So if you wanted to get a straight shot for the barrel without sending it down through the action with the weapon assembled, you could do this and take it apart rather easily. So these 2 pins have big heads on this side. However, if you rotate it over, you can see that the pins are smaller here. That's because they're going to go back that direction. And so if I push that pin, I can do this with my thumb. If it's a little tight, you have a used weapon and nobody's taking care of it, then You might have to bump that through with a little wood dowel or a brass dowel or something of that nature, but once you pull that all the way through, this starts to, in essence, come apart. Okay? Now you can take it apart and do just about everything you can with the other pin just in there. Okay? But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and push that pin out as well. And when I pull that pin out, basically what's going to happen is, again, I have, in this configuration, this is the lower receiver, and this is what's called the upper. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the upper. So assuming now what you want to do is you want to get the bolt out, you want to pull that out, but this is what you'll run into if this is what you do. You get here and it won't come out any further. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you bring the charging handle out with it. So it has a button that you depress over here that allows it to move. If it's clicked in, it's hard to pull out. It's impossible to pull out. So you depress this button and it'll come. And once you have them both coming together, when you get to the end, the bolt, whoop, drop the charging handle, I'll pick that up in a moment. This will all come apart. This will all come apart rather easily. So I picked up the charging handle. So again, I'm going to take that for right now, just like I did in the last video. Set the charging handle to the side. Set the bolt group to the side. And I'm going to set the lower receiver to the side so I can focus my attention on this barrel. So I forgot my daggone gloves again, so I went and got some. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take some brake free and spray it down in here fairly liberally and scrub all this area out where our bolt and our charging handle and the whole bolt carrier group functions properly. So again, we want this to be easy for everything to function. So it's often been said that the bolt unit itself, the actual bolt, likes to be wet. And so what we're doing is we're just taking the opportunity to make sure that it gets wet, although we're going to clean the excess off. Again, I want to tell you again, I love these little bitty, these are pistol brushes just for cleaning that main portion where your rounds are going to go into, because it fits and it's easy to work. So once we do that, we're going to take a snake and run it through there. So our snake has a weighted end on it, and again, I use a 22. Seems to work pretty well. Let the weighted end fall through, again, the direction that the bullet travels, and then just simply pull that through. Now, if you're not familiar with these snakes, this is what you've got. You've got a weighted end, and this weighted end has a designator on it as to what caliber it's supposed to fit. Then you have just cordage. Then right as you get to the main portion of the snake, you've got some fabric. But slightly above that, what you have are some brushes. And these brushes, after a lot of use, these are worn down quite a bit, but you'll have brushes right here, and then it gets thicker and thicker and thicker the further along that you get. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick some brushes right in here. I'm going to stick some cleaning patches, because they get down in there real well, and just run them through there with the brush, basically getting the excess oil off down inside of this area of the weapon. And again, just wiping off excess. And you want this to run wet, but you don't want it to be dripping wet. The more oil that is on the outside, or the more oil that's around this weapon, basically it acts as an attractant for small particles. And so you don't want, although you want it to run wet, don't get me wrong, you want it to not have so much that it's just grasping hold of a lot of different particles and pulling them in. Now the next part of this I want to show you is down inside here, down inside this area of the weapon, you have the gas piston that's going to come back, and you don't want that to be clogged up. And so you can take a pipe cleaner, which I don't have and I don't necessarily need it on this, or sometimes you can take a small wire, make sure that it gets in there and cleans all that out real well. And again, right now just a finger with oil on it is going to get enough oil on here to do what it needs to do as a preservative. So if this was like a very detailed and detail-oriented clean, I would take off the foregrip and make sure that everything is oiled down in there as well. It's not that type of clean on this occasion, so basically I'm just going to oil down the areas that I can get easy access to, and in that manner this gun's going to be ready to run because I'm getting ready to use it again for another class. So that's what I've got done. Now what I can also do is I have flip-up sights that are basically push-up button flip-up sights. I can oil that apparatus down as well so that that functions properly, but that's really overkill more than anything. So again, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the upper and I'm going to set it aside because it's ready to rock, and I'm going to give some attention to the trigger group right here on my lower. You want your magazine well to function properly so you can spray it down. And then again, brush it out. This is a good spot for a weapon to gather a bunch of crap and crud, because if you're dropping mags on the ground and pick them up and shove them in there, then there's a good spot for you to stick gunk up in your weapon. And so I brushed out any large debris, and now I'm just going to take a rag, pull it through here to wipe off any excess that's in there. And my magazine well is now clean. Now again, if I wanted to, I could put some oil down in here on the safe fire mechanism, and as well as down in the spring. I'm looking down in there, I've got plenty of oil, so I'm not going to put any on there, but if you're looking down there and it looks extremely dry, then you might put some oil preservative down in there. So now let's put this bad boy together. So I basically take the weapon, and that first pin, I put those two areas together, and I slide the pin through. Then I bring this one back down, and I slide that pin in. Again, the pins that's right here and right here, I don't know if that's getting out on camera again, but those are the two pins that I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set this aside for now, and I'm going to give some attention to my bolt, and then we're going to assemble it all back together. So this is my bolt, and I could simply right now just brush all these parts down. As you can tell, it's still pretty oily from where I put it on there when we first started. Again, it doesn't matter if this is entirely wet, but I'm just making sure I get all the crud off of it, all the dirt, because again, the break free acts as a cleaner as much as it does a preservative and a lubricator. So what I'm doing is making sure I get all the crud off of it, and then I'm going to re-oil it. Now, something we can do as well, if you like, there's a cotter pin that's right there, and once we pull that cotter pin out and we change the status of this portion of the bolt right here, we can pull the actual bolt all the way out. So I'm going to do that next and make sure that's good and clean. So the next stage of this is take a 223 round, 5.56, whatever it might be. There's a cotter pin right here that holds the firing pin in place. And so you can take the end of your bullet, push that through. You can either pick this out, or if you have some sort of hook, sometimes I just have my hook available. You can use just about anything to pull this cotter pin on out. Once you pull that cotter pin out, I like to set that aside where I know where I can get it, and then you can tap real easy and your firing pin comes out. So now we're going to take some time to clean the firing pin up in just a moment, and then I'll show you how to also take this portion, the actual bolt, out. So the next piece, if you look right here, this is elongated, and basically this piece right here, the lengthways is running perpendicular to the bolt carrier. So I want to turn this right here in such a fashion that it comes out. So you just got to get that lined up, and by so doing, that piece comes out. And there it is. Again, I'm going to set that aside. And by when you do that, the whole bolt comes apart. It comes out rather easily. So now that that is all disassembled, we can spray them down liberally with oil. And if you wanted to, you could basically let all these pieces and parts sit and just soak that up real good. You can also just get down to business, cleaning this bad boy up. Again, I'm just trying to break everything loose right now. Get all the large particles of things out of here. The rag is doing that, so I basically spray that preservative, lubricant, and cleaner on there. And you can tell I'm just pulling off a lot of the gunk. That's what's on the cloth there. So if I'm gonna need to get in there real good, I can get my brush. Looks like it's getting a little dry, a little gunked up. And I can pull my rag in and out of there, get everything good and clean. I keep these little hooks. You can buy these in gun stores too. If you can get some good dental tools, they're even better. Just make sure that that's good and clean. And again, this portion of the game is just to get all the big stuff out of there. I'll oil it and grease it here in just a bit. But I'm going to do that to that portion. Get the firing pin good and cleaned up. Here's my scouring pad again because it gets caked. So the firing pin is bright and shiny, almost like new. Now on this portion, here's something that a lot of people are not aware of that's important. You'll notice that these rings, get this real close. These rings right here, they have these little divots in them. There's one, there's another. There's another. You don't want those, oh, I'm sorry, there's just two. Nope, there's three. You don't want them lined up. So you want to make sure that those are what the gas is going to be allowed to escape through there, and you want those to not all be lined up so it's not, all the gas is not coming out on one side. So that is another job for a little tool like these little dental tools, or these little grabber tools with the hooks on them that you can get in gun cleaning kits. So basically I'm just moving them around, so you got 1, 2, 3, and they're spaced out fairly evenly now, so the gas is going to escape appropriately out of here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the bolt. This is the actual bolt. Real identifying aspect of the bolt of an AR15 is right here. But we're going to take the bolt and put it back into the bolt carrier. And remember, before we took this pin out, the pin that we have resting over there in our little container, but we want to get those holes lined up. So once we get that in there, we want to make sure that the holes right here are matched up. Once we do, we can take that pin again, and we're going to have to do it just the opposite of what we did before, which is we put it in there. Basically, the length of the pin here is running parallel to the same direction as the bolt carrier, and then we slide it forward and we can turn this back around so that now that does not come out, can't come out just by its mechanical design. Now, we'll put in the cotter pin and we'll be ready to go. I mean, we'll put in the firing pin and the cotter pin, we'll be ready to go. So the next step is to take our firing pin, shiny, stick it down in there. Looks like a big thumbtack, doesn't it? So we take that, put it down in the hole, let it fall in there. Now you'll notice sometimes that they'll be sticking up to here if they're not oiled real well. So make sure it's all the way down in there. Real good. And then take your cotter pin, stick your cotter pin in where it belongs. Sometimes you'll get to where the cotter pin, turn this on the side, the cotter pin does not want to go all the way in. So you just turn it the other direction and it'll go all the way in. Whoop, there it is. It's all the way in. So now everything's working and functioning properly. We're going to assemble this back together with the actual upper receiver. One last note, I forgot. Again, put a little bit of grease along the rails where the bolt carrier group is going to go against the rails on the rifle. And again, this is just finger thickness. So I'll just put a dab on there and I'm just getting it finger thick on there. Once we do that, we want to put the charging handle and the bolt carrier into the weapon. So here's a little trick. You'll see these little these outward indentations. You want to make sure that you slide your charging handle in. It won't slide in right here, so you put it basically inside the barrel portion where the carrier group and pull it up. So basically you're going to stick it in the big hole. You can slide it right along until you feel it pop up, and once you do that, it's in place for you to put the bolt carrier inside. Now that both of them are in there, they'll both go into place. But the key is that charging handle's got to go in first. Now we can take our lower receiver, and again we'll put, that's the dust cover. Let's go ahead and get the pin out. Sorry I didn't have that done already. Have the pin out, put the front pin in, real simple, slides in, and then let the lower right into, the upper right into the lower. Stick this pin in, so basically you get the two pins back. And in essence, you now have a very functioning weapon. And so that's how you clean up a good old AR-15. So glad you joined us. Come on, join in. Let's learn together.